decisions based in truth and wisdom. Please help us to be able to communicate clearly and effectively. Please help us to be aware of all of the sacrifices that have been made for the freedoms and blessings that we enjoy. We ask that thou would please help us to always remember those freedoms and blessings and to use them for good. We ask that thy spirit will be with us, that we will be blessed with the power of discernment, and that we will be able to return home in safety when the time comes. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Larson and Commissioner Prince. We'll move into our consent items. We have a few minutes to approve. The August 14th minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of 2025, and then the October 9th. Did everybody have a chance to review those on the August? We'll first discuss the August 14th, 2025 meeting. Did anything look out of order or needs to be corrected?
Just one thing that I noticed in the very first paragraph, it references that these are the minute meetings, I believe, for July 10th, 2025 instead of August. And so I think we just need to make a correction there.
A correction on the date. All right, if there's no other issues on that, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for August 14th, 2025 and October 9th, 2025.
Do we want to discuss the October ones? Sorry. Sorry.
Well, and Commissioner Larson and I were not here for the 14th, so we can't vote on that one. And so we might want to do them separately.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to be only the August 14th meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Greener and a second by Commissioner Bates. All in approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. All right, now on to the minutes of October 9th, 2025. Was there any corrections that need to be made with those minutes as you reviewed them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the Planning Commission meeting held on October 9th, 2025.
I'll second.
You have a motion.
Hang on. You said you weren't here for the October 9th? No, Amanda.
No, I was here for October. I wasn't here for August.
Oh, okay.
So
My bad.
that's okay.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Bates to approve the minutes and a second from Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now we can move on to our action items of discussing creating a TRC checklist. And we'll turn some time over to staff to kind of go through what was in the packet.
Yeah, so you guys all have that newly drafted subdivision application checklist in front of you there. Okay. As you guys are well aware, a year ago now, we updated our Title 10 zoning subdivision to include a Chapter 8 that was partially influenced by some new state law that mandates some it has some requirements and some ordinance that needed to be adopted surrounding 1 to 2 family residential homes. That was a kind of a long haul. I think we worked on it for a few months, maybe 6 or a year, got it done, and it's implemented now. And we're doing it. The process is working, but we always intended to have a subdivision application checklist, similar like what we had for our old process. And so I just went through our ordinance, which is included at the back of your packet, the newly adopted one, and tried to keep it simple. Because, you don't want to reiterate, right? I want to make, this is just an application that's really an administrative tool to give to applicants to summarize and guide them through that process. So this, in my opinion, actually got a little lengthy, but wanted to make sure we covered all of it. And so you'll see the first one's just the approved land use application. That really just talks about if they need a conditional use permit or anything like that, that's included. You'll see the second one's the plat, and it goes through all the plat requirements. This is really a lot of what our review is, along with the next one. Number 3 is our improvement plan. So we go through those different things. One note on an improvement plan, not to get off topic, but as I was reading through it, I think an unintended consequence of our last ordinance was we're requiring traffic studies for minor subdivisions. My understanding and discussing with staff, those have generally been for minor subdivisions, traffic studies have been at the engineer's requirement. So I think that's something we should revisit. And I'll get that maybe do an agenda if you guys want to have traffic studies required for us, or if it'd be, we of course will require them on UDOT highways. We'll require them from major subdivisions always, but on a minor, it seems like in the past we would leave that to the discretion of an engineer. So if you have like 2 or 3 home subdivisions. Go ahead.
Malcolm, can I ask you a question before you move on that? Is that something that UDOT would require regardless of what we say if it's a UDOT road? Because isn't that kind of how that's worded, that for subdivisions with any boundaries shared with the UDOT Department of Transportation road, submit evidence that they've reviewed the subdivision plans and are in agreement? But so I don't, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Would we need, is it the way the ordinance reads right now, isn't that only if the minor subdivision intersects with a UDOT road?
We'd have to go to the ordinance itself, which we could real quick. You go find it.
If I may, just at the end there, on the last sentence, it does say on city streets, the approval for location and number of curb entrances must be received from the city engineer.
Are you still on what?
On the improvement plan on C.
Yeah.
Let me catch you real quick. You're still looking at the checklist itself.
Would
Yeah,
that still be
improvement plan
considered,
and C.
I mean, is just the number of the approval of location and number of curb entrances, does that constitute a traffic study if?
It may in the ordinance that it
Okay.
state that it requires the traffic study.
So if you go down to, let's see. It's gonna fight me on it.
I think it's under 3B. Let's see. 10-8-9. 3B, a traffic study. It's the,
Yeah,
I think it's the exact same wording that you
10-8-9.
put there.
Is there a traffic study section there? I can look it up. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. I'm fairly confident though. I'm confident that the way our ordinance read, and I just didn't carry it to the checklist that way because I don't think we'll have it, but either way, I'll find it and bring it to you. But I'm pretty sure the way our ordinance read was that minor subdivision, that all subdivisions would have to have traffic studies. It didn't exclude minor subdivisions where, for instance, with soil reports, we left it for a minor, it was at the discretion of the engineer. And then major or any other subdivision was required to have a geotechnical or a soil report. I don't think we did. I don't think we allowed that discretion to the city. I think it was an unintended consequence, though, is what I'm saying. So, but I can find it and email it to you guys
Okay.
for sure. Anyway, so if you go back up, get back where it was. That was one thing to know. An improvement plan, which required the traffic study, then required certifications. This is something, again, an interesting process we have to work through. And I know this isn't specifically what we're working on, but we are requiring these final letters of approval because now we want finals because we're giving final right off the bat, right? We only have one attempt at this and we give a final. So the ordinance required a final letter of approval. That's been hard in practice. So something we probably need to revisit. As you can imagine, right, there's water shares to turn in and connection fees sometimes to be paid, and I found the other entities don't want to budge on that. So it's been a little hard to have them go pay $200,000-300,000 and bring it, you know, and not even know if it has any legs. So we've adopted it best we can, and we still require the finals before you guys ever see them, but we have started, I guess you could call it an informal review with preliminary will serves like we did in the past, but we might want to look at our ordinance for that, and just FYI.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the ordinance states pretty clearly that we have to have those finals. So if we're going to change it, but then I worry too, because there have been situations in the past where we've had developers come in and say, oh yeah, I have the water, I have everything. And then it moved forward and they did not have the water, and that caused quite a few problems down the road. So I wonder if we could possibly work with Hooper Irrigation and maybe come up with some sort of system where we know, maybe, I don't know if they're going to want to give them a final, maybe there's some sort of workaround that we can meet in the middle so that we're not leaving the city in a situation where we've moved forward and that timeline starts on that new subdivision review cycle without knowing for sure that we're going to have that water. Does that make sense? I just don't want us to get in trouble because the review cycle starts and then we get to a point where they really don't have what they've represented. But according to how the ordinance reads, it can't start until we have a complete application. And so if we move into that review cycle, to me, that sends the message, this is complete. And the developer could come back and say, hey, you said it was complete, even though we didn't have all of those boxes checked.
So even if we started the review and then came back and found out that they hadn't provided everything, it would then be considered an incomplete application. So it would be back on them.
Okay.
So it doesn't, just because we start our review, because I mean, part of it we have to review to see, make sure that they've even turned everything in. And
Yeah,
so,
to that point, I spoke with other cities because right off the bat, I was like, oh, this is a big problem, right? Because I was following it to the T as I should, right? I was like, you got to bring me I got to have a final. And we got Taylor West Weber looped in. And I mean, Ross and Ranch, for instance, I think they pay, I mean, they had a lot more surety, right? They had a phase subdivision and they've been here, done that. But I think they paid all their connections and everything for like $100,000 because we were like starting. But, everyone else we've required it as well, but so it's kind of been a bottleneck. So I talked to other cities and that's kind of what they've done, is required it at final but started review. And other cities that actually had Hanson do their update as well, Hanson and Associates. So I don't know, I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, and maybe I'll try and get creative and see a way maybe we could modify the code so that it's more explicit. But that's kind of like other cities have explained to me, they're like, we just tell them this is the subdivision checklist, you didn't meet it, so we can't start review. Would you like us to start review just so you can work? Would you like to start informal review so you can go get your finals? Like, yeah, please do. And they start looking into it. And then once they're at a good point, they're like, yeah, you're close. This looks good from an administrative standpoint. We would be able to recommend it. Then they go get their finals and come forward. And that's kind of in their workaround, but I know it's not explicitly clearly written. It's just trying to work with developers the best we can. But
That makes more sense to me if maybe somehow we indicated, or maybe there's something we have them sign up front that they understand this isn't indicating that the application is complete, but we're willing to review it and look at what you can provide us right now so that you feel comfortable moving forward or something. Would that be allowable?
it's something we could do. I don't think it's necessary because it's still governed by state code, and like we can't relax those provisions, but regardless, if it's an incomplete application, if we find out it's incomplete, it's incomplete. And so I mean, there's a lot of legal support for that, but it's something that could be recommended that if they want to sign that, we could do that. But it's also something that if the code's triggered and it is a complete, even if they've signed something, we're still going to be held to whatever that short time frame anyway.
The way that it's set up right now, do we have to give them something stating, okay, we consider this a complete application, so you know that that time clock starts ticking right now because we're limited on our days?
It's been a minute since I've reviewed that. I don't believe we're required to provide anything. And I've had interactions with developers too. You have a wide variety, and some are really great to work with, and you can say, hey, like, this isn't complete, and others that will fight you every tooth and nail on, or fight you tooth and nail
Yeah.
on every.
Those are
step
the
of
ones
way.
I'm worried about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's been our fix to this point, just so we're not at a standstill. We review them, we don't send them to you until it's complete. That's been, and I know it follows the spirit of it, but it might not, be to the T, but I think it technically works. That being said, I'm happy to revisit with the entities, Taylor West Weaver, Hooper Water, and Hooper Irrigation, to see if their process can modify slightly to be more accommodating in terms of what has to be provided to get that final. Although I think kind of the standstill that came there is if they're overly accommodating, then those finals really don't give us the assurance that we want, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a weird cycle. Anyways, and then I also am happy to follow up with the other cities that I knew Hanson had done, because and not that Hanson specifically created this problem. I think a lot of cities just have this problem now and see how now that they're a year in, how they're operating with it. And I'll let you know. But anyways, not to get too far off. The idea of this was to get the checklist. And so then we have our supplemental information, and our required copies. of
Hey,
the
hey,
final-
Malcolm.
Yeah.
Sorry to pause you for 1
Yeah,
second,
go
but
ahead.
on the supplemental information,
Uh-huh.
there's one that it just doesn't sit very well with me. The names,
number-
addresses, and
number 5.
telephone numbers of all adjoining property owners. I'm not sure that's up to us to put that onus on somebody that wants to develop to go knock on the neighbors' doors and get telephone numbers. And I mean, the other information's available through like GeoGizmo, right? You can find out
Yeah.
who actually owns the property, but I don't know if we should be soliciting telephone numbers. It would make our lives easier, but I don't know if, especially for a minor subdivision, I shouldn't have to go meet all my neighbors to build a house or invade their privacy to get their phone numbers. Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and this would come right from our code. I'm sure it calls out. Now I'll
I
double
think
check.
I think it's 600 feet, and the city in the past, Morgan has done it, I know, and Bryant used to. He would take a snapshot of a 600-foot circle, and then he would go to the developer and say, I need $35 because I got to send out 32 letters or whatever it is to your adjacent property owners. So then the city took the burden to send the information out to the existing property owners that surrounded this.
I
Yeah,
can see
so
it on a
telephone
major
numbers is
subdivision,
right from
maybe
our
not a
code.
minor.
Yeah, telephone numbers right from our codes. If we were going to change it, we'd have to change it. I think the idea behind that, they are both under supplemental information. Morgan actually does that still. She'll take the 600 feet and this one's for, you'll see it calls specifically names of adjoining developments and names of adjoining streets. Let's see, property owners of record or the names of adjoining developments. I think this one specifically is so the city could reach out about any potential issues, right? Yeah. Well, it's our checklist. We're requiring it in our ordinance. But the idea behind this one isn't to notify the residents, because we'll send a stamped letter. That's how we do it. We're not notifying the surrounding residents. We want to know any abutting or adjoining parcels, contact info, so that we could get a hold of them yeah, go ahead.
This is for the city to do, not the person trying to get the development.
No, it's required by the developer to submit it. Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, when we develop it, we put the burden on them to go get it. I mean, I guess from that standpoint, how would I get their numbers?
Yeah, we talked about that when we were working on this, if you remember, and I think we went back and forth because that's putting even more on our staff. And this is the developer who's wanting to do the development. I guess the risk you run is if they don't give us all of the information for all of the property owners around there, we can't properly notice them and let them know that this subdivision is possibly going in. But I think it seems like we had talked about maybe not wanting to put extra work on the staff of having to find all of those, because they're the ones that already send the addresses out, right? Or send the notices out,
I think
right?
to clarify this one in like a live practice, so with Kimball Estates, right? We had three property owners come to that public hearing. And we had contact info for those three, and they all had issues with property lines, irrigation, and you know what I mean? And so I think the idea behind the ordinance, and I'm okay with changing it, was just that Yeah, I'm not out there because surprisingly, I can't get numbers from the front office as easy as I thought. I thought Monica up front billing could just give me phone numbers for them, but she can't. They're not always tied to them. I don't know. But
Well, and
that
that's,
said,
I,
the idea was they get me contact info for adjacent property owners so that should I see a blatant issue, it's like, hey, I see a discrepancy in plat maps here. Or they've noted one. Are you aware of this? Or something like that. But we could modify it, but that'd be probably another conversation another day as we revisit that.
yeah, yeah, the names and addresses are all public record, but the telephone number to me is, you're gonna have to knock on somebody's door for that. And I don't want anybody knocking on my door asking me my phone number.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
something.
or because with that too, I could be like, oh, if I don't give this guy my phone number, then he can never build there. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a good.
Well, and one way we could justify getting rid of it is you guys have asked to have public hearings. So there should be notification to all residents surrounding them. So they should have their chance to come and let me know. And if then it becomes an issue, they'll come meet me. So I'm okay with it. Maybe something because we'll continue to focus on just the checklist here, and then we could set up a meet or just a review, maybe a discussion on this chapter as a whole, because it seems like there's 2 or 3 issues that have now become brought to light as we put it into practice, and we could kind of talk about those and maybe come up with some changes moving forward that we'd like to put into practice.
So what happens if you don't, if I'm doing this and I don't have the telephone number, stops it?
I think it's probably similar to this turning in a final will serve letter.
Because
Technically, if it became an issue and I brought up to Matt, like, well, technically they never gave me this person's contact info. Was it a complete? I don't know.
a
But
lot,
am I gonna in practice tell them?
yeah.
I don't think I got all the numbers here. I typically, kind of run with what I got. As
And-
long as it looks fairly complete, I run with it.
Yeah,
Try and
yeah,
get it
and there's a lot of property that's in a family trust. There's not a phone number.
Yeah, no, I think it's there to protect us. But I don't, I try my best, but I can't say that I know every phone number's there when I process the application, but I try. So with that, I think we should probably get that on an agenda though to discuss chapter 8 maybe and to specifically talk about those. But I guess back to the checklist then real quick. Let me get back up where I was. We had that supplemental information was number, I'm down in the ordinance now. Supplemental information's number 5. There we go. We have our copies. We changed that. So these are what we want submitted digital and hard copy. And then we have the final one, payment of application, to make sure we have payment. So really it's kind of, I tried to boil it down to 7 check boxes and then the items within them. So do you guys have any concerns with the checklist as it reflects to the ordinance? Anything you want added that you'd like to see more consideration on with the checklist? Or
I think this looks great. Malcolm, it looks like you took it right from the ordinance so that we're covered. And I agree with Travis on the phone numbers. I think if the city council is okay with amending that ordinance, just take that off. We don't need it. The other thing I did find in 8-9-1 B2 under minor subdivisions, it does reference that area on those reports, and it says studies and reports, unless required by the city engineer, an application for a minor subdivision need not contain the studies and reports required under section 10-8-9. So it sounds like for a minor subdivision, we wouldn't need the traffic study. If I'm reading that correctly, does that sound right?
where you're at?
It's on 10-8-9 1B number 2 under studies and reports. Unless required by the city engineer, an application for a minor subdivision need not contain the studies and reports required under section 10-8-9, which is the section that traffic study, I believe, is located under. I believe. Tell me,
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll have to go through 10-8-9 to know for sure. But that I can't say I remember coming across that exemption there, so that might resolve my concern. So thanks for highlighting it.
I think it will be great if we can start to get this checklist sent to us, at the beacon and the checklist.
Yeah, I can send the checklist with the submission to the TRC for review. so that you
Send
can
it to
see.
the commission as well.
Yeah, so that you can see the TRC or the checklist and what was checked, what, maybe wasn't, so.
I think that will help us expedite things when they come to the commission. So we used to have that staff memo in there and it was so helpful just to be able to look at it and know that you guys had reviewed those things or what was still lacking. And I would feel a lot more confident in voting if we had something like this given to us ahead of time.
I would just recommend adding a disclaimer on there, something to the effect of that this is an aid and that it is still the applicant's responsibility to comply with the full section, the full code.
Perfect. Matt, one other thing, it'd be helpful to have you review. In our code, it specifically wants an applicant's affidavit. So you can see there's a sample in there in the checklist. You can modify that and change it. I don't think they'll care too much as long as we have one. And a property owner's consent and dedication. So those are some sample forms that are required in our ordinance that I figured why not just provide a template so they can submit something complete. So this is, you get time, let me know via email or something if there's problems with that.
Okay.
Malcolm, do you know if we have any subdivisions that have recently applied or that are going to be applying that we would need this for prior to us getting it on the next agenda to approve it, or?
The closest one coming for approval will be Kimball Estates, which has been public heard and completed, but we didn't have the checklist. We just would have submitted what they sent us, so.
So would it be all right, even if there's one that comes in prior to our next meeting, for the staff to just use this and with
Yeah.
that disclaimer?
Yes, and in fact, in my opinion, this isn't something that necessarily needs to be voted on by planning commission or city council. It's more just an aid for people to help them navigate that process. So yeah, they could definitely be using it starting tomorrow.
Okay, well, I have notes from what you guys brought up. Is there anything else? Okay, I'll look into the things you brought up, look at maybe a few of those. I'll double check on because it sounds like we're all in agreement, and I know that staff we don't want to require traffic studies for minors unless they're on a UDOT road or the engineer determines we probably ought to have one. I don't want to require those, but I'll make sure that that exemption and that ordinance would allow for that. And then we'll maybe meet on chapter 8 again here in the next couple months just to see if there's any process change. But first I'll look into, some of these other utility company, how they're working through this with other cities and stuff so that we can have a discussion if we want to try and modify the code at all. But I'll reach out as I find out some stuff. So other than that, I think that's it for the checklist. I'll send it to you guys from now on in this format.
We appreciate that, Malcolm, for the time and effort you put into putting that together. It looks great. We'll now open the meeting up to citizen comment. You will be allotted 3 minutes. Come up, state your name. You don't have to, you can stay if you're a resident of Hooper, and you have 3 minutes to express your concern. You can express your concern, but we can't take any action or comment on any of your concerns. So open that time up now to citizen comment. No citizen comment. We will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Greener and a second by